The top stories tonight in Y News. President Rodrigo Duterte slams Senator Franklin Drilon, ABS-CBN, and telecommunication companies in his fifth State of the Nation address.
Streets during President Duterte's fifth SONA peaceful according to Metro Manila Police Chief.
The Department of Health says there has been a plateauing in the emergency hiring of healthcare workers amid the COVID-19. The province prepares for the reopening of tourism activities.
New Zealand government to spend $51.6 million on embattled overseas education sector.
Giant teddy bears keep customers apart at Mexico City Cafe. Good evening, Philippines and the world. Today is Monday, July 27, 2020. I am Jorlene Delgado.
Join us in the next hour as we deliver today's top stories around the globe. I'm Angelo Castro III.
We are also seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through the UNTV News and Rescue social media accounts and our website, untvweb.com. I am William Theo.
First in the news, President Rodrigo Duterte slams Senator Franklin Drilon, ABS-CBN, and telecommunication companies in his fifth State of the Nation address. Our Malacanang correspondent Rosalie Cons will tell us why live. Yes, Rosalie, go ahead.
At the beginning and at the end of his fifth State of the Nation address, President Rodrigo Duterte slammed opposition Senator Franklin Drilon on the issues of ABS-CBN, the oligarchy, the anti-dynasty system, and the questionable water concession agreements. He called the senator a hypocrite. He also made mention in his SONA the Lopeses of the media giant. Here's the statement of the president earlier.
There are those who take advantage of a preoccupied government. One of them is Senator Frank Drilon. In an interview, he arrogantly mentioned, among others, that oligarchs need not be rich. Then he linked the anti-dynasty system with oligarchy, and the topic was my daughter and son. This happened after the Committee of Franchise voted 70-11 to deny the grant of franchise to ABS-CBN. Obviously, he was defending the Lopeses, that they are not oligarchs. Great wealth enable economic elites and corporations to influence public policy to their advantage. Media is a powerful tool in the hands of oligarchs like the Lopeses, who use their media outlets in their battles with political figures.
The 16th Philippine president also issued a stern warning of closure against telecommunication companies. He said he will spend the last years of his term improving their services. Here's again President Duterte.
Alam mo itong LB Street, smart, pati itong Globe, ilang taon na ito? At ang sagot palagi sa akin, the party cannot be rich. Kindly improve the services before December.
Meanwhile, the chief executive reiterated his belief that the vaccine against COVID-19 will be available and the problem on the health crisis will be resolved sooner and not later. He revealed that he had made a plea to Chinese President Xi Jinping about the COVID-19 vaccine and asked him to prioritize the Philippines in the supply and grant credit when it is already available. He also explained that he will not allow face-to-face classes until January 2021. Unless a vaccine is available, which he believes will be available in September of this year. Thus, President Duterte promised to increase the number of schools with information and communications technology capacity for blended learning. He says he will make the public education network happen before his term ends in 2022. Here's the Chief Executive.
In support of the Learning Continuity Program, through blended learning, we plan to increase the number of schools with ICT equipment in the coming months. The DepEd and the DITC are building up the public education network or PEN that will connect all public schools and DepEd offices nationwide. We will prioritize the connection of all last-mile schools and those with no electricity supply and have it via satellite and energized via solar panels.
The chief executive also urged the Congress to support and pass numerous proposed legislation. One is the revival of the death penalty to address the country's problems on illegal drugs. Here's the statement of the President.
I reiterate the swift passage of a law reviving the death penalty by lethal injection for crimes specified under the Comprehensive Dangerous Act of 2002.
Meanwhile, Harleen, the chief executive, directed also the government frontline services and instrumentalities to intensify e-governance and make the transactions digitalized amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Harleen?
All right, thank you so much, Rosalie Cos, for that report.
Rallyists took to the streets today to voice out their to the Duterte administration. The protest. Our police correspondent Leah Ilagan will tell us why.
No untoward incident was reported in Commonwealth Avenue and Batasan, Quezon City during the State of the Nation address of President Rodrigo Duterte this afternoon. According to National Capital Region Police Office or NCRPO Director, Police Major General Debolsinas, the protesters kept their promises and dispersed peacefully.
The area, the situation is normal and peaceful. Nung nangyari na yung rally ng mga protesters natin doon sa UP, it was covered properly, it was peaceful.
Also, the protesters did not try to enter the Commonwealth and Batasan areas as agreed.
Nag-alista na po sila doon at hindi na po sila papasok ng Commonwealth Avenue. Would like to thank yung mga partners po namin doon because they abide with our agreement and they follow yung kung anong pong napagsaduan during our small group discussions.
However, the Philippine National Police arrested 34 violators of quarantine protocols in various places in Metro Manila. 5 of the violators were from Quezon City and were believed to be members of transport group Piston. 24 were arrested in Marikina City, all aboard one vehicle and violated physical distancing. 5 others were protesters in Caloocan City distributing flyers. Investigation is underway on those arrested violators who may face charges according to the PNP. Leah Ilagan, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Meanwhile, lawmakers accept the challenges President Rodrigo Duterte mentioned in his fifth SONA. Let us hear some reactions from the members of the House of Representatives from our senior correspondent, Ray Pelayo, live. Yes, Ray, good evening.
Good evening, Will. Several lawmakers said they were overwhelmed by the salient points of President Rodrigo Duterte's fifth State of the Nation address at the Batasang Pambansa this afternoon. House Committee on Ways and Means Chairman Representative Joey Salceda expressed gratitude to the President for calling on the Congress to pass important measures such as the corporate recovery and tax incentives for enterprises or the CREATE bill that will help businessmen to recover from their losses due to the impact of the coronavirus disease or COVID-19 in the country's economy. The Department of Finance earlier said that once the CREATE bill is passed, businesses will be able to save about 42 billion pesos in taxes this year, as the bill seeks to reduce corporate taxes from 30% to 25% annually. The bill passed the lower house and is still waiting for the ratification of the Senate. Salceda was also pleased by that the President mentioned in his SONA the creation of the Department of Disaster Resilience, which he authored. Meanwhile, Congressman Rufy Biazon supports the President in reviving the death penalty for drug crimes. Biazon was among the first proponents of the said measures. For his part, House Majority Floor Leader Ferdinand Martin Romualdez said the majority bloc is ready to respond to the directives of the President, especially the passing of measures related to the government's fight against COVID-19. Meanwhile, House Minority Leader Bienvenido Abante Jr. gave the President a passing grade for his administration's performance when it comes to the COVID-19 response. Abante believes that the President is doing his best for that matter, but on the other hand, the lawmaker believes that the problem lies with his subordinates. House Speaker Alan Peter Cayetano earlier said, given the action items that the President laid on the table this afternoon, expect a very busy Congress ahead. Will?
Yes, thank you, Ray, for that report.
The Cebu provincial government prepares to reopen its tourism industry. Our Cebu correspondent will join us tonight to tell us why live. Yes, Gladys, good evening.
Harleen, support local tourism. This was one of the things that President Rodrigo Duterte mentioned in his State of the Nation address this afternoon. But before today, the Cebu provincial government has been preparing to reopen tourism-related activities after months of strict health and safety protocols designed to prevent transmission of COVID-19. The aim is to help and support locals who are dependent to the tourism industry. According to the Cebu government, whale shark watching and diving are among the tourism activities that will be allowed to reopen. Cebu Governor Gwendolyn Garcia has met with resort owners and officials to discuss the guidelines for the reopening of tourism activities. Harleen, an online booking portal will be used since no walk-ins are allowed.
Gladys, may I ask what's the latest count of COVID-19 cases there in Cebu?
Harleen, as of yesterday, Cebu province, excluding the Tri-Cities, have recorded 2,992 confirmed cases with 158 deaths and 1,127 recoveries. The Tri-Cities in Cebu province, which are Mandaue City, Lapu-Lapu City, and Cebu City, are independent cities. That is why they have a separate consolidation of COVID-19 cases. Harleen?
Thank you so much, Gladys Tuwabi, for that report. The Zamboanga City government appeals to the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases to suspend the return of Filipino deportees from Malaysia to the city. According to City Mayor Beng Climaco, their quarantine facilities can no longer accommodate any additions. Those facilities presently house more than 7,000 returning locally stranded individuals and overseas Filipinos. The Zamboanga City Tourism Office, meanwhile, releases a new protocol for travelers. Now, people who want to return to Zamboanga City must register with the Turismo Local de Zamboanga Facebook account. This is aside from securing a medical certificate, travel authority, barangay clearance, and proof of residence. This move aims to manage the number of returning residents who must first wait for the city's approval before being allowed to travel back to Zamboanga.
Elsewhere in Basilan Province, it's a different scenario. The return of locally stranded individuals resumes. According to Governor Jim Hataman Salman, they have prepared a quarantine facility for about 2,000 individuals who will return to the province. Governor Salman says, however, that when its quarantine facility reaches its full capacity, they will request for a 15-day moratorium to the IATF. Let's now take a closer look at the updated count of coronavirus cases around the world. The COVID-19 pandemic has now reached a total of more than 16 million confirmed cases in 188 countries, regions, and sovereignty. That's after more than 200,000 new cases were reported by various countries. Of the world's total confirmed cases, more than 8 million are from the Americas, while patients in Europe account for over 3.2 million of the global total. The fast-spreading disease has claimed more than 648,000 lives as countries record over 4,800 deaths since yesterday, while the number of patients across the globe who have recovered from the new coronavirus infection has surpassed 9.4 million, thanks be to God.
Meanwhile, the country's Department of Health reports more than 1,000 cases today. 1,657 cases added to the country's patients based on tests done by 59 out of 90 testing laboratories. That raises the total confirmed cases of coronavirus infection in the Philippines to 82,040. 65 duplicates were removed from the total case count. The top provinces that reported new cases included the National Capital Region with 1,017 new patients, while Laguna has 89. The total active cases are now at 53,649, of which 90.0% are in mild condition. We have lost 16 more patients, but through our fervent prayers, medical interventions, and sacrifices of our medical frontliners, 359 more people have won their battle against the invisible enemy. That brings the total recoveries nationwide to 26,446. Thanks be to God.
Around 10,000 protesters joined the SONAgkaisa rally today. Health and safety was strictly observed. However, physical distancing was taken for granted by some of the protesters. Joanano will tell us why live. Yes, Joanne, good evening.
Yes, William, militant groups from various sectors gathered earlier today inside the UP Diliman campus in Quezon City as they joined the SONAgkaisa rally in time for President Duterte's 5th State of the Nation address. Among the participants were Bayan, Nagkaisa, National Union of People's Lawyer, Karapatan, Sanlakas, I Defend, Tindig Pilipinas, Every Women, and other youth groups. Personalities ABS-CBN broadcaster says Drilon, human rights lawyer Attorney Shell Jokno, and Attorney Ted De were also present during the SONAgkaisa rally. Even former Chief Justice Maria Lourdes Sereno expresses her support in the protest rally through a virtual message. They condemn the inaction of the Duterte administration and its failure on its COVID-19 response, the passage of the anti-terror law, the closure of ABS-CBN Corporation, and issues on jobs for Filipino workers and plans on a better education system, among others. Thousands of protesters marched along the University Avenue. All of them wore face masks and observed physical distancing. But because of intense heat, many protesters found shade under trees and their physical distancing was violated. The rallies also carried out the burning of the first ever virtual effigy of President Duterte. Unlike in the previous SONA, the SONAgkaisa rally concluded at around noon today. The organizers explained that they also needed to consider the health of the protesters, especially in this time of COVID-19 pandemic. Will?
Yes, thank you, Joanne, for that report.
The Department of Health reported today that there has been a plateauing in the emergency hiring of healthcare workers amid COVID-19. Meanwhile, silent protests of several groups of healthcare providers snowballed before President Duterte delivered his fifth SONA today. Our health correspondent Aiko Miguel will tell us why live. Aiko, go ahead.
Diego Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergere reported this morning that there has been few takers who want to enlist under the Health Department's emergency hiring program amid the COVID-19 pandemic. The DOH described it as a plateauing in numbers. Here is Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergere.
Nung una tayong nagpalabas nitong mga volunteers and then emergency hiring, ang daming nag-a-apply. Pero ngayon talagang pakunti-kunti na lang siya. Kung ilalagay natin yan sa graph, no, pataas dati, ngayon nagpa-plateau siya. So we are looking for the other strategies also so that we can further augment our healthcare workers in the hospitals.
Diego, currently there are more than 6,000 personnel hired, but hospitals need more. The DOH has partnered with universities and institutions to hire for more to be deployed to hospitals. Undersecretary Vergere also pointed out that although healthcare workers have fear, they must remember they have the commitment to serve and that they have to trust the government will care for them. Meanwhile, healthcare workers call for more staff to be deployed in hospitals to avoid long hours of duty risking their lives. They wanted to hear from President Duterte the assurance of protection and safety of medical frontliners in the country. Here is Maris Abenojar, the National President of Filipino Nurses United.
Nais namin na magkaroon ng malinaw at konkretong plano kung paano talaga bibigyan ng proteksyon at support ang ating mga frontline health workers.
Diego, currently there are more than 4,000 healthcare workers infected with COVID-19. 36 of them succumbed to the disease. DOH awaits the government's green light where to get the funds for the compensation of those who have died since Bayanihan to Heal Act 1 Act expired last June. President Duterte said in his SONA this afternoon, Bayanihan 2 will be fast-tracked. Diego.
Thank you, Aiko, for that report.
Some locally stranded individuals voiced their thoughts on some points of President's State of the Nation address, saying they are in favor of reinstating death penalty and no face-to-face classes while there is no vaccine for COVID-19. Meanwhile, authorities also conducted contact tracing to those who have been in contact with LSI who tested positive on rapid test. Vincent Arboleda will tell us why live. Yes, Vincent.
Yes, Harleen, the safety of their children is the top priority for some of the locally stranded individuals as they voice their support for the president's stance on no face-to-face classes until a vaccine for COVID-19 is available. For Rosalie, a single mother of 4 from Misamis Oriental, she prefers that classes be postponed until next year.
Ba dito?
Opo.
Bakit?
Kung pwede sana nga
wala mo nang pasok sa isang taon na lang. Parang ganun ang ano ko. Mas gusto ko yung seguridad ng mga bata, lalo na sa anak ko.
Editha Cubillan from Davao also prefers her children to stay at home.
Dahil sa panahon natin ngayon, COVID, sakit yun kamamatay. Para sa inyo mga anak natin, dapat nasa bahay lang.
Both Rosalie and Editha are also in favor of the death penalty as it can help deter those who have bad intentions. Meanwhile, according to Labor Undersecretary Benavides, the families and those who rode on the same bus with the LSIs who tested positive on the rapid test will undergo swab testing.
The process is mag-undergo po sila ng swab test, then i-quarantine po sila. I think that's the protocol namang sinusunod po natin.
Authorities have already alerted the receiving LGU. Meanwhile, Yusek Benavides adds that the Hatid Tulong program of the government will continue to send our stranded countrymen back to their provinces. As of 1 p.m., there were around 1,500 LSIs remaining at the Rizal Stadium, majority of which are bound for Caraga region. Yusek Benavides adds that bad weather have also contributed to the delay of the travel of the LSIs.
Admittedly, may delay because nga pag umuulan, we have to suspend the processing. So we utilize the structure within the vicinity to provide temporary shelter dun po sa ating mga kababayan LSI.
In several buses carrying LSI bound for Caraga were also seen departing from the Rizal Stadium since this afternoon until this moment. That's the latest live. Back to you, Harley.
Thank you, Vincent Arboleda.
The Federation of Associations of Private School Administrators is dismayed over President Duterte's SONA today. Dante Amento tells us why live. Yes, Dante, good evening.
William, the Federation of Associations of Private Schools Administrators, or FAFSA, wanted to hear some plans for the private education sector from the President's SONA. But FAFSA President Eliazardo Casilag was dismayed over President Duterte's speech today. FAFSA has more than 3,000 member schools across the country. Casilag says the President did not even mention a single plan for private education institutions. He added that during this pandemic, the private sector is among the most affected, like teachers who lost their jobs. Here's Eliazardo Casilag, the President of the Federation of Associations of Private Schools Administrators.
Nagbigay yan sa amin ng lesson na we really have to fight for ourselves, no? We don't have to depend on anyone.
Some 200 of their member schools have revealed temporary closure. Meanwhile, William FAFSA also says it may be forced to enter the political arena just to hear its voice in the future. They cannot assure if they will not be among those marching on the streets just to let the government hear their appeals and positions. Back to you, William.
Yes, thank you very much, Dante Amento. Meanwhile, South Korea turns over its various donations to the Philippines, being one of the country's staunch partners in the COVID-19 battle. Its humanitarian assistance includes 600,000 KF94 protective masks, 7 of Korea's groundbreaking walk-through test booths, face shields, and more testing kits. Secretary of Foreign Affairs Teddy Locsin received the Republic of Korea's donations today.
Some overseas Filipino workers from different countries expressed satisfaction over President Rodrigo Duterte's support for workers abroad. The chief executive assures OFWs of the government's presence in providing help for them. Asher Kadapan Jr. details why live. Yes, Asher.
Arlene, about 300 Filipinos working overseas gathered online to join and listen the 5th State of the Nation address of President Rodrigo Duterte today. They represent different groups of OFWs across the globe. They were primarily anticipating that President Duterte will discuss the creation of the Department for Protection and Welfare of Overseas Workers. The chief executive did not fail them, as he again urged both houses of Congress to pass the law that will create a new agency for overseas Filipino workers called the Department of Filipinos Overseas and Foreign Deployment, which he already announced in his previous SONA. United Filipino Global International Chairperson Gemma Soto explains they are glad to know that lawmakers already passed the House version in March and is just awaiting the Senate's approval. Here's her remarks on the President's SONA. President Duterte also assures the OFWs that the government will continue to provide them with the necessary help they need. He also asked the Technical Education and Skills Development Authority, or TESTA, the Department of Trade and Industry, and other agencies to come up with trainings and programs to help the OFWs. Arlene?
Asher, how did President Duterte address the concerns about the returning OFWs?
The chief executive reported that there are already about 1,000 OFWs repatriated and assisted by the government through different agencies since the pandemic started in late February. Arlene?
Thank you so much, Asher Kadapan Jr., for that report. Meanwhile, Senate Minority Leader Franklin Drilon has denied claims of President Rodrigo Duterte that he defended the Lopez family, who owned the embattled media network ABS-CBN. This was after the president took a swipe at the opposition senator's remark that oligarchs need not to be rich and link it to the issue on anti-dynasty, where the topic is about his children, Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte and Davao City Representative Paulo Duterte. The president says Drilon is defending the Lopez when the Lopez family, when the House Panel on Legislative Franchises denied the franchise renewal application of ABS-CBN. In a statement, the Senate leader refuted the claim, saying that he is defending the freedom of the press and not the Lopez family. According to Drilon, he supported the franchise renewal of ABS-CBN because of the importance of free press and information dissemination in the middle of the pandemic. He adds he is not defending the Lopezes but the 11,000 employees of ABS-CBN who lost their jobs amid the pandemic. Meanwhile, Senate Majority Leader Miguel Zubiri tested positive for COVID-19 again. This comes after his swab test result came back positive despite 3 negative rapid test results and possessing antibodies. However, according to Zubiri, doctors say that it is possible that the test detected only the remnants of the dead virus, as he is a COVID-19 survivor. The Senate leader says he is now isolated and under self-quarantine while waiting for the test results of his swab test taken this afternoon. Some senators, including Senator Sherwin Gatchalian and Nancy Binay, will also undergo self-quarantine after having in contact with Zubiri earlier today. Zubiri, along with 16 other senators, physically attended today's opening of the second regular session of 18th Congress at the Senate Session Hall this morning. Zubiri and Gatchalian were supposed to head to the Batasang Pambansa this afternoon to witness the president's address, but decided not to go hours before the SONA.
Valenzuela City Mayor Rex Gatchalian met with the owner and management of Metrolink Bus before noon today. Photos have gone viral online showing a Metrolink Bus unit allowing its passengers to sit without observing the proper distance prescribed by authorities to protect against COVID-19 transmission. Yesterday, Mayor Gatchalian warned that if the owner and the driver of this bus did not appear in his office noon today, he would personally make sure that all Metrolink buses are barred from entering the city. Now, according to Mayor Gatchalian, during today's meeting, after being warned, they agreed that the bus management will sanction their drivers and conductors. The bus company will remove extra seats in order to fully comply with social distancing at all times. They will pay 462,000 pesos worth of fines. The Valenzuela City Mayor also warned other bus operators not to commit the same violation, or they will suffer the same consequences Metrolink is facing.
Jago and William, we are on board the UNTV radio mobile booth, and we are here in Quezon Avenue in South Triangle, Quezon City. Let's take a look at the situation on the road. So far, we have a light traffic flow in this area from vehicles coming from EDSA and Elliptical Road going to España, Manila. Meanwhile, we also have a light traffic on the other side of the road for motorists coming from Manila going to EDSA. A little reminder to our drivers, roads are slippery here in our area due to light to moderate rain, so take extra precaution while on the road. And for our weather update. A low-pressure area was spotted east of Luzon, while the Intertropical Convergence Zone, or ITCZ, is affecting Mindanao. State Weather Bureau Pagasa says at 3 p.m. today, the LPA was located at 410 kilometers east of Virac, Catanduanes. Because of the LPA and the ITCZ, cloudy skies with scattered rain showers and thunderstorms will be felt over Visayas, Mindanao, Mimaropa, Bicol region, and Quezon Province. Meanwhile, Metro Manila and the rest of Luzon may experience partly cloudy to cloudy skies with isolated rain showers, mostly in the afternoon or evening. Possible flash floods or landslides may occur during severe thunderstorms. No tropical cyclone advisory is issued.
And for the news abroad, here's Elsie Marcos live from Auckland, New Zealand. Elsie, what have you got for us tonight?
William, today, the New Zealand government said it will spend $51.6 million on its embattled overseas education sector. Meanwhile, in our neighbor Australia, Victoria warns that a 6-week lockdown may last longer if people continue to go to work, even if unwell. I will also tell you why Vietnam will evacuate some 80,000 people from the city of Da Nang.
Go ahead, Elsie. Please tell us why.
The New Zealand government will spend $51.6 million on its embattled overseas education sector as schools, universities, and tertiary institutes continue to falter from the loss of foreign students. The $5 billion foreign student industry has essentially ground to a halt after the government closed New Zealand's borders due to COVID-19 in March. In an effort to help plug the gap, the government announced a stabilizing package for the industry, which includes a range of subsidies as well as new policies to support the sector's recovery and rebuild. Education Minister Chris Hipkins, who announced the package with Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, said that education providers should not expect to bring in students from overseas this year. He added that much of the sector's recovery in the future comes down to when the borders will be reopened. He also promised that no universities are going to go broke in the short term as a result of the border closure. Elsewhere in Australia, Victoria State reported today the country's highest daily increase in coronavirus infections. This prompts authorities to warn that a 6-week lockdown may last longer if people continue to go to work while feeling unwell. Australia's second most populous state reported 532 new cases of COVID-19, the most new cases in a day since the pandemic arrived in Australia. It also reported 6 more deaths, taking the state toll to 77. That's almost half the national death toll of 161. 5 of the latest deaths were people in aged care facilities, the authorities said. Victoria has 4,542 active cases as of today.
Just a matter of fact, we have too many people who have symptoms and they are going to work. And what that means, even with mask wearing, even with hand hygiene, even with distancing, that is an unacceptable risk in terms of transmitting this virus.
Meanwhile, according to Prime Minister Scott Morrison, the high number of new cases in Victoria shows how transmission of the illness among younger people to aged care facilities through family members could happen. Vietnam closes the city of Da Nang to tourists after 4 new locally transmitted coronavirus were recorded during the weekend. Those cases are the country's first since April. Prime Minister Nguyen Xuan Phuc on Monday ordered Da Nang residents to re-implement social distancing and close all non-essential services. With new restrictions, no tourists can enter the city for 14 days. Extra flights are being laid on to fly up to 80,000 visitors out of the city. Vietnam has been lauded for having acted early to close borders and enforce quarantine and contact tracing amid the pandemic. The country, which has a population of over 95 million, has recorded just over 400 cases and no deaths. But nearly 100 days after its last locally transmitted case, 4 new cases emerged in Da Nang, a central coastal city popular with domestic tourists. The Vietnamese Prime Minister said the response had to be decisive. However, he has not yet ordered a total lockdown of the city. This week, North Korea reported its first case of coronavirus. Its leader Kim Jong-un has declared a COVID-19 emergency afterwards. But today, South Korean military and health authorities said that they believe a North Korean defector crossed the border back into the north, but added there is no sign he was infected with the coronavirus. South Korean health authorities also said they had found no sign that the man identified as the possible defector had tested positive for the virus or been in contact with anyone who had. 2 people who had been in contact with a man tested negative for the virus on Sunday. South Korean officials have not named the person, but identified a 24-year-old man who they say fits the description and probably returned to the north recently, Yonhap News Agency reported. Meanwhile, in the United Kingdom, junk food advertisements will be banned on TV and online before 9 p.m. Also, shops will not be allowed to display sweets and chocolates at checkouts. These are part of a national crackdown on obesity. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson is also putting an end to buy one, get one free promotions on high-fat products as part of his new Better Health campaign. The Prime Minister is encouraging people up and down the country to lose weight to save the NHS time and money after his own brush with coronavirus in April. According to new Public Health England figures, people who are clinically obese are 40% more likely to die of COVID-19. Johnson points out that losing weight is hard, but with some small changes, Britons can all feel fitter and healthier.
Since I recovered from coronavirus, I've been steadily building up my fitness. I don't want to make any excessive claims because I've only really just started concentrating on. But I'm at least a stone down. I'm more than a stone down. I'm only about 5'10", at the outside, and
And those are the reasons behind the news here in New Zealand and in other parts of the globe. Back to you, William.
Yes, thank you, Elsie, and you stay safe there in New Zealand.
Juventus fans took care to celebrate while observing social distancing. Aaron Romero will tell us why.
Juventus won Serie A for the 9th season in a row on Sunday. But with the stands empty, celebrations in Turin, Italy were also more subdued. Most, but not all, fans wore face masks as the COVID-19 pandemic continues to be a threat here and throughout most of the world. Portuguese veteran Cristiano Ronaldo set the tone for Juventus, leading them to a 2-0 win over Sampdoria to claim the title. Ronaldo broke the deadlock in first half stoppage time with his 31st league goal of the season, and Federico Bernardeschi added the second. But Ronaldo's evening ended on a sour note when he smashed a penalty against the crossbar after Alexandro was fouled. Aaron Romero, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
A cafe in Mexico City lets teddy bears take their seats with diners. Nina Arbillo has the story why.
Have you ever sat with a giant teddy bear while dining out? At a cafe in Mexico City, these teddy bears give their smile, as well as reminders to customers to maintain social distancing. Located in the capital's Polanco district, Hasso Bakery is placing the bears on seats at its outdoor tables to keep its diners at a safe distance from one another. With coronavirus infections in Mexico's capital still running high, patrons and cafe staff agree that the giant toys are an effective and light-hearted way of promoting the message of keeping oneself safe during the pandemic.
This idea with these great teddy bears, I think everyone likes it. That is why I came to this place, to have a drink and to help out the business, and for us to be aware of social distancing.
The idea of putting teddy bears at the table, I think it's a simple idea that looks really good. It helps the place out as it doesn't look so sad with reduced patron numbers.
For the cafe workers, the teddy bears help brighten up the mood at the cafe a little more.
To invite you all to restaurants and also to make distancing a little friendlier, with the teddy bears, one is motivated to come with their kids, their partner.
As of today, Mexico has more than 390,000 coronavirus cases. Nino Armilio, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Those are the reasons behind the news, July 27, 2020. I am Jorlene Delgado. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Reasons we deliver to you as they unfold. I'm Angelo Castro III.
And I am William Theo. Because we need to know, we will always ask why. Have a great evening, everyone.